When we are working with large sets of data, one of the biggest challenges we're oftentimes confronted with is trying to find ways to visually represent those data and find ways to easily identify any sort of pattern or trend that might be present. So in this case, I've downloaded a year's worth of data from Concord, New Hampshire. It's hourly data, so basically every day on the hour. Looking at this file real quick, I have over 8,000 lines worth of data. So what we're going to do is basically take all these wind data, we have direction, speed, and wind gusts, and we are going to analyze these to try to find and identify any patterns. So to do this, the easiest thing to look at is a cardinal direction. So over here I have these 16 cardinal directions that you would see on a compass. In the column to the right, I have the associated degrees that go with those. And what we're going to do is count the number of hours where the wind was within that direction. So for example, how many hours for all of 2013 was the wind coming from the north, or how many hours was it coming from the east, and so on. So the way we're going to do this is to use a built-in function in Excel. This is known as the frequency function. So if you type equals, start typing frequency, and you'll see it pop up, and you can just double click on it. Or you could finish typing frequency, open parenthesis, and it'll bring you to the same place. So the first thing it's asking for is our data array. So these are just the data. What column of data are we going to use? So I'm just going to click on G, and that's going to plug in all of these data in the entire column. All right. So then it's asking for a comma, and now it's asking for my bins, or my array, which are these degree for the cardinal directions. And I'm actually going to lock these into place. If you hit F4, you're going to notice it adds dollar signs in between each letter and number for that range. And that basically is saying it's locking it into place. I'll close parenthesis, hit enter. So what this is saying is for all of 2013, there was a total of 63 hours where the wind was coming from between 0 and 11.25 degrees. And that's from the northerly direction. And as you can see, that's only about half of the northerly winds. So I want to apply this same equation to the rest of the values within these bins. So I'm going to highlight from 63 all the way down to the bottom row. I'm going to hold down Control Shift and hit Enter. Oh wait, I have to click up here first. So yes, you have to click in the equation bar first. Then hold Control Shift Enter, and it'll create that distribution for you. So basically, if you add the totals, we have over 5,000 hours where there was wind in Concord. Looking at it, the Northwest had over 900 hours alone. That's by far the biggest number. And over here, I basically converted those to percentages. So in Concord, New Hampshire, 17.7% of the time, the wind is coming from the northwest direction. So that would be known as the prevailing wind, and that's a very easy way for us to quickly analyze and figure that out. So we're starting to identify some patterns. Another thing we can do is actually break down these data and use a conditional statement and say, well, okay, this is all the wind. Maybe I only want to look at wind when the wind is exceeding a certain threshold. So in this case, we're going to use an if statement, and we're going to look at when the wind is greater than 10 miles per hour. So only the days or hours where the strongest wind was. So it's going to ask for a logical test. So I typed equals if, open parentheses, and then I'm going to click on the column next to it for wind speed. And my test is that I want it to be greater than 10. Okay. Then I'm going to type comma. So if that's true, I want to know what the direction is. So I'll click on G3, which is my associated row for wind direction. And then if that's false, I don't want anything there. So I'll just put open and close quotations for a blank, and then I'll close it. Okay. I'll click on that again. You can see my equation right in there. So click on that, and then in the bottom right hand corner you can see the cursor change as so, and if I double click there, it's going to apply that to every single row within these data. So if you look, anytime the wind exceeds 10 miles per hour, as in here, it'll put that wind direction. Okay, so I'm going to come back up here, and because it's next to the column where I just did that frequency distribution for, if I highlight and click and drag this over, it's going to apply it to column H, which is what I just did for analyzing wind direction for winds over 10 miles per hour. So if I let that go, it converts it and I get a new distribution. Now looking at this, you'll see we're starting to see more of a pattern. So in this case, our prevailing wind's still from the northwest, except when wind is exceeding 10 miles per hour, it's almost 30% of the time that you're getting wind from the northwest. And if you wanted to see this in a graph, we could just highlight these percentages over here, which is very easy to do, converting built-in equations in Excel. So I'm going to go Insert, I'm going to do a column graph, and I'll just do this top left one. So just looking at this real quick, I'll blow this up. You can format the graph and everything over here. Let's see, which one? But yeah, basically you could find one that has chart titles so we could access that. So here's our cardinal direction. Series 2 is when the wind was exceeding 10 miles per hour. Series 1 was all wind for Concord, New Hampshire. But basically you start to identify the patterns. And these are percentages, so the graph does look kind of skewed in that direction. But as you can see, you can clearly identify patterns. So you could do this with any variable. So if I expand this out, this was just looking at winds. Let's see, I'll unhide these columns. I could do the same for sea level pressure compared to temperature or precipitation or sky cover or anything like that to try to identify other patterns. So the best thing to do is to play around with it and try to find any sort of trend. But this is, again, a very easy way to find any visual patterns or representations of these data. And it works very well with large data sets. All right.